So hard to get back in that game. Where do you think where you let it slip in the last 10, 15 minutes?
I don't think necessarily we let it slip. I think they're just a good side who can pounce on your errors as well as anyone in the competition, particularly on this ground for whatever reason. The dimensions aren't that much different to other grounds, but it just feels like it can bounce from one end to the other really quickly. And if we've probably had a few 12-point plays throughout the game. In the end, that's probably the biggest difference in it. I mean, they were dominant clearly to start the game and jumped us, but I thought we wrestled our way back into the contest really well. So it wasn't as if I felt like we let it slip. We fought our way back in, got back in front, and they responded as good teams do.
We spoke all week about how undermanned you were going to be coming into this game. Did you feel the belief from your young players grow before your eyes as the game wore on?
Yeah, huge step forward for us. Huge step forward in terms of, everything. I mean, character, fight, effort, contest, the exuberance of youth, young players who don't use that as an excuse. We have expectations and, we never talk about, I think you asked me, Mitch, before the game, X number of teenagers. I didn't know that because it's not, we think those players that we selected are capable and that's been our message to them and they held up their end of the bargain. So there are a number of critical contests where our players stood up. But to Brisbane's credit, they're a good side and when challenged, they respond.
Martin and then Caldwell's third quarter particularly just immense. Can you just talk about their influence and what that does to the young fellas?
Yeah, you're always... against all good sides, but I think Brisbane in particular, if you're not up for the fight in the contest, it's going to be, they're very good post that. So if you can't at least compete really strongly in the contest, it's going to be a long night for you, both in defence and your ability to try and attack and counter-attack. And I thought, Caldwell, Martin, I thought all our midfield really responded after the first quarter where we were comprehensively beaten early. And then we were able to give our forwards a look and we've got some pretty exciting forwards.
You had a chance to reflect on it. Was there a moment in the first quarter when you thought, gee, this could be a long night?
Oh, well, I mean, that's in the subconscious probably, but I've got to, and our coaching group have got to practice what we preach, which is, you've just got to stay assess what's right in front of you and stay in the fight. And I thought that the assistant coaching group did a really good job tonight. We had to clearly change some things in terms of how we played and, they put in a power of work and I thought they executed, really well given the circumstances.
There's probably some moving parts in terms of your personnel from now on, but what can you take from tonight that you think you can apply to the rest of the season?
All phases, really. I thought we... Brisbane, the stats will say Brisbane took a lot of uncontested marks, but they took most of them in the back half. I thought we were able to defend reasonably well, but not well enough over the course of the game to be, considered a top tier side. So, but I think if you're going to test out your defence, playing against Brisbane at the Gabba is a good way to do that. So. But the foundation, though, I say it repeatedly, the foundation of the game is the contest, and I think that stood up fairly well tonight.
Sam Durham looked really sore at quarter time, and I even saw you having a chat to him. How close was he to being subbed, and from there, how did you go about managing the rest of his night?
Yeah, I just spoke to the medical guys there at quarter time and just said no risk. So they assured me that it's uncomfortable, but that there is no risk. So once that was established, it was a matter of function, and we used him more forward than we probably would have liked. But he's really influential wherever he plays. So he soldiered on in a fair bit of discomfort, but he's got through the game now. He's just got a rolled ankle, and he'll ice it up and recover in the next 10 days and be fine.
You just take a decision to play Merritt behind the ball, especially early. Was that more to stabilise, given some of the players you had out of that back 50?
I could give you a really sort of fancy answer here, Mitch. We ran out of defenders. We had 5, so we had to get one from somewhere. And we did it last week a little bit against Richmond. We think that he's a class act wherever he is on the ground. It certainly wasn't to stabilise the game. It was just a matter of shuffling the magnets a little bit to try and get some balance in our team. And we love him off half back, but the problem with us at the moment is that we love 3 or 4 players in 3 or 4 different positions all at once. So you've got to make a decision. Maybe you rob Peter to pay Paul a little bit, but I think the silver lining for us is we get some flexibility in our team. We play players in different roles, and we learn a bit, and we learnt more tonight, and most of it was positive.
We all have a fairy tale story. You picked up 4 guys on Wednesday night. Is there any chance that any of them play next week? I know it's just early, but it doesn't look like you're getting any of the key backs back anytime soon.
No, not likely. In terms of the key backs back soon, but yeah, the boys who will come in, we one will play tomorrow, 2 will play tomorrow. Oscar Smart's already in our VFL program, so he'll play. McMahon will play, and the 2 boys that are coming from Perth, one relocating from Perth and one coming home from Perth, will play at some level next week for us. So whether that's in the AFL or VFL, but we were really pleased to be able to bring in some reinforcements. 3 talls and a player in Oscar Smart that we've had our eye on for a long time. So I've said it quite a bit. You can't control when you get your opportunity, but you can take it when it arrives, and I suspect the opportunity will arrive for each of those 4 boys.
What do you expect Nate Caddy to learn from a night like tonight?
Well, I think he's going to learn that he's capable of challenging the best key defenders in the competition. I thought that's the best game I've seen him play, and not just because of the goals over his head and that sort of stuff. He's just a really impressive athlete, and he can do things that others can't. So, it's not many 19-year-olds who can basically when Peter Wright's in the ruck and Todd Goldstein's having a well-earned rest, he's holding up a forward line. So I can't recall too many 19-year-olds doing that, and he's been terrific for us, and we still think there's so much upside. So clearly we're excited.
Just Jake Gresham got some strapping on that sort of groin adductor area at quarter time.
Cork, yeah, he's got a cork. Yeah, cork in his hip again. We thought he looked pretty proppy there in the first half, but I thought his second half was exceptional. So again, just a cork.
Thanks, guys.
Yep, cheers.